So now that we're getting our movies by genre from our REST API, our REST backend, we should be able to modify our front end to actually display those movies. And we're going to do that by starting in app.js and looking at our roots. So down here in the switch section, we have our path for movies ID and for movies, and we have one for genres, but we don't have one for genres ID. So what I'm going to do is just copy this line and paste it right here, and have that go to a non-existent component, which I'll call OneGenre. And instead of movies ID, it will be genre ID. Okay, so now we need to create this component OneGenre, and I'll do that by going to my components folder and creating a new file called onegenre.js. And I'll use my standard imrc to get my first line in there. And I'm going to use a fragment too, so I may as well put that in right now. Fragment. And I'm going to also use a link, so I have to import link from React Router DOM right there. And now I'll create my class. I like to end these with semicolons. I know you don't have to, but I just like to. Export default class, and I'll call it OneGenre, and it extends component. And in there we're going to have state, and state will be equal to, and I'll have, just like I did in my movies file, one called movies, which starts as an empty item. Then I'll have isLoaded, which is set to false initially, and I'll have error, which is set to null initially. And I'm also going to have a component did mount. Now I'm going to save some time. I'm going to go to movies.js and find that component did mount and copy this entire thing and go back to OneGenre. Actually, that should be an array, not an object. And paste that in here. There it is. And we're not going to go to v1 movies. We're going to go to v1 movies plus a parameter, plus this.props.match.params.id. And that will give us our /movies. Once I put the slash in here, there. So that's correct. Now nothing else here needs to change at this point. So can I go back to movies.js and just get the render part? Copy this whole render function, and we'll just change it as required because they're very, very similar. So OneGenre, and after component did mount, let's paste in our render function and see what we have to change here, if anything. Well, first of all, we can't assume that when we search for movies by genre that we're going to get anything back. And absolutely that's true right now because I only have one movie with any genres at all. So what I'm going to do here after my constant, and where I populate these three variables from the state, we'll just check to see if we have anything in movies. If not movies, then I'll just set movies equal to an empty array. Okay. And of course, if I'm going to overwrite that value, I have to use a let here, not a constant. So that's another change. Now, if there's an error, display the error message. If it's not loaded yet, display the loading message. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same. The only difference is, rather than choose a movie, let's put genre, and then I want to display the genre name. And how am I going to do that? Well, I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to just leave that alone, and we'll take care of getting the genre name in the next lecture. But for right now, is there anything else I want to change here? Well, let's just make this a little more attractive. And I said I wouldn't do this until later, but let's get started right now. I'll make this a div instead of a UL, and I'll give it a class name using one of the Bootstrap classes, list-group. And then I'll get rid of this div and change this to a closing div tag. And inside here, instead of having an li, I'll just get rid of that and get rid of that. Instead, I'll modify this link. And I'll modify it by giving it some Bootstrap classes, just to see how it looks. Okay, so format everything. And I'm going to add the class name, and I'll do it right here. class name equals list-group-item, list-group-item-action. I shouldn't have to do anything else. So now I have this. Let's go back to our app.js, and we're going to have to import one genre, of course. So here, I'll just duplicate this and import one genre from one genre. Okay, no errors there. No errors anywhere. Let's see how this works. See if we missed anything. So my application is running. So let's switch back to our web browser and go to Go Watch Movies and go to Genres. Okay. And now let's look at one that I know there's something for. Drama. The Shawshank Redemption. And there, that's very nice. I roll over it and it highlights. And that link is going to an existing route for our movies. So this should work too. And it does. Now if I go back to Genres and choose comedy. I know I don't have anything in comedy. It just displays an empty page, which is perfect. So the only thing that's missing at this point for basic functionality is displaying the genre name right here. And we'll take care of that in the next lecture.